Hello and welcome to the Bears and Lions podcast. This is the podcast where we challenge our present by viewing our past. I'm a firm believer that our greatest future lies within the correct view of our past, because when you actually look at it, you're going to see that, yeah, you've gone through a lot of things. Some things weren't even your fault, but they've helped mold you into the exact person that you are. And it's my job in this podcast is to help you see that you are so much stronger than you could possibly imagine and help bring that confidence to your present and into your future, giving you the confidence to step into your future, knowing that, yes, you can do this. Yes, you can handle this. Yes, things can be difficult and there's going to be a lot of hard times, but you are resilient and you are going to be able to make it. And that's what we do here at this podcast. I just want to simply say thank you so much. Episode 50. I don't know how we did it. I don't know when we did it. I don't know how, it was a blink of an eye to me in starting this podcast last August. And then all of a sudden going through a bunch of different transitional periods and moves. I moved. And there's so much that is developing and changing all throughout the time. But I'm just so thankful for all of you that watched on YouTube, commented, liked, subscribed. Those of you, I went back through Apple Podcasts and Spotify. All of the people who have listened to this podcast in the first 50 episodes is so encouraging and exciting. So what I did in today's episode is I compiled a couple clips together from the first few episodes. And it was really cool just going back through and being reminded that we are constantly developing, right? It's getting better and better and better and better. And I can't wait to show what episode 1 looks like compared to 100 and even beyond. There's so much more that I can't wait to share with you. So I went through, I got a couple of clips, and I hope that you enjoy them. And of course, I really would love to be able to establish in the next 50 episodes and bring some value to you. So I want to do an Ask Me Anything, an AMA, and I'm not sure when I'm going to do that or how, so keep an eye on my socials. If you're not following me on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, it's at Kyle Vaught, Kylev as in Victor ATT, or on Instagram and Threads, it's Kyle_Vaught, V as in Victor ATT. Send me a message, shoot me a follow, send me a message and say, hey, I would really like you to discuss this, or hey, I'm going through this and I'm not sure how to handle it. I love researching that stuff for you. It's a great way for me to be able to delve in and look up studies, look up researches, listen to podcasts, or listen to really smart people that know way more about it and learn about something so I can bring it and bring value to your life and say, hey, this is what I see and this is what the studies show. And that way I can communicate it to a mass, because there's a multitude of things that I'm going through, which is what I'm sharing with y'all, especially with the new job and everything like that. And part of that is I can't be the only one going through this, and you're probably not the only one going through what you're going through. So if we come together and collaborate with different questions, I could do a whole series of podcasts on the different questions that you guys bring me. I'd love to put a couple weeks into that thought process. So please hit me up with a follow. If you're watching on YouTube as well, thank you so much. Make sure that you like and subscribe. If you're brand new here, I also have the podcast available audio-wise on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So make sure that you drop a follow and listen to all of those as well if you're on the car or getting ready. And that's one of the reasons why I've always had this under 20 minutes is because that's the average commute time. Or getting ready for work. I want to make this digestible and not something where you have to come back to at a later time or listen to part of it and say, oh, I really like that, but I'm where I'm going. So I really, really try my best. Now, today's episode is a little bit longer because, yeah, there's a bunch of clips from a couple different episodes, and I really, really appreciate it. But I really hope that as we develop through the next 50 episodes and beyond, right, that we will be able to create not just a community, but a group that is fully, they're all in. They buy into the understanding that we have the ability to make a change in our lives. I really want to inspire you to take action. It's 2024. There's so many things that I know I'm working on right now, and I can't wait to share more of what I'm doing. There's a few things that I've been studying for the last few weeks. There's a few books that I've been reading as well that I have great ideas from to share with you. But there may be things in your life that you are ready to step into your future, and it's time to make that step. Maybe it means leaving a job. Maybe it means going back to school. Maybe it means something crazy. You know, you don't even know. Maybe it's moving halfway across the United States and or moving to a new country. And that's what 2024 is bringing. And it's our job to encourage you. So I hope you enjoy the clips. I cannot wait to show you all the things that are happening in 2024. Again, if you have not listened to episode 49 with our conversation with Gage Winton, that was a phenomenal conversation. I'm really inspired and encouraged by it. Go back and listen to that. And I hope that you'll have a wonderful week. But this felt like it was jumping off the page of, this is a story that you resonate with, because this is a story that I think you're telling yourself about who you were, and you're saying, I'm just a shepherd, not I've faced bears and lions, right? So many times I think we face these things and we're like, I can't handle what I'm going through. But if you correctly look at your past, I think there are areas where you can say, don't say that. I think you can. I think we have. And I think we've dealt with it. And I think that that's a huge, huge thing when it comes to developing a mentality that you are viewing your past correctly and challenging your present to say, okay, what am I doing right now? And what have I done in the past that can correlate? And so I always say it. I truly believe that there is a story inside everybody that's just waiting to be told. And I think sometimes we tell ourselves a story about what happened. And sometimes we are the hero in our story where we're like, yeah, we were so awesome, we saved the day. And then other times there's stories of our past where we're just like, I don't know what I did. I don't know what I was thinking. And it debilitates us to make decisions in the present because we're so afraid of repeating the past. We're so afraid of the past happening again. And it really, honestly, it's one of those things that I feel like as I go through life, I am consistently and continuously challenging myself of what have I done and what have I been able to accomplish? And why am I afraid right now? Or why am I scared to do something? That is literally why I'm finally deciding 6 years after I had the idea of this could be a podcast or a series or a book or something. I finally have just decided, why am I afraid? I have done all this different stuff with content creation. I've worked in radio. I've worked in sports broadcasting. I have the broadcasting background and the equipment. Why am I waiting? And that is where I'm at right now, is I'm at this place where I just realize I don't need to wait anymore. I shouldn't wait anymore. This is important stuff, and I've had it on my heart for years. And so as I've developed and I've grown and I've learned different aspects of it, I've referenced this story time and time again. And so over the first, I would say, few episodes, we're going to kind of go through some of that story. And again, it's not to say you have to believe what I believe. It is just simply as a reference point to say, I think this is the story that everybody can resonate with. And I think this can challenge your thought. Doesn't matter what your background is. I'm not trying to make you believe what I believe, because that's not who I am. And if you know anything about me, you are going to know that, one, I love my faith, but two, I love people more than I love my faith. And what that means is I will always put you and caring about you or other people in my life ahead of trying to get you to believe what I believe. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm putting, anything in front and saying X, Y, and Z. I just wanted to be very clear, and I wanted to be open and honest in this first episode that this is why it's called Bears and Lions, is because we have them all throughout our life. And I want you to understand that you have the capability to make a difference in your present day. You have so much that you've gone through that has prepared you. You just doing your job, your regular day-to-day life, whether it's school or whatever it was, has prepared you in ways that you may not even realize. And that is what this podcast is all about. And that is why I want to challenge you to walk through with this podcast and walk through. And I don't know how often I'm going to necessarily post, and maybe I will be able to get a very consistent schedule. And that's the goal, is to find a consistent schedule at some point. So we'll see what happens. So the first lesson that I want to talk to you guys about is the story of the three little pigs. And I'm sure you've heard this story growing up. Your parents probably told you it. The big bad wolf comes and says, I'm going to huff and I'm going to puff and I'm going to blow your house down. But here's the gist of the story. One pig, of course, builds his house out of straw, another out of sticks, and then another out of brick. And the wolf comes and blows the straw down, blows the sticks down. The pigs go to the brick. The wolf can't blow the brick house down, right? So that's the story. It's very simple story. But here are the lessons from the three little pigs. Is if your future was a house, what are you building it out of? Because I think a lot of us, including myself, went through multiple years of my life where I was just existing, building with scraps of whatever I could find. And oftentimes it wasn't anything. And I knew it wasn't very sturdy, but I was just building my future on straw and sticks. I was building my future on the things that would not last the tests of time. And I really mean it. I would take my paycheck, spend it on myself, on food and entertainment, and I would not put anything aside for the future. Or I would put very little aside into savings. I wasn't thinking intentionally about what I wanted to do with my future. And so my question to you is, if your future was a house in the three little pigs, are you building your future out of straw just because it's in abundance and it's something that you can find a lot of? And I'll put it this way. Are you building your future by simply existing? Just going throughout your day, working a same job, setting aside a minimum amount into savings, with not really a direction of where you think you're going to go. You're just kind of existing and experiencing things at the moment. Now, that's not a bad thing, but when the wolves of this world come around and huff and puff, that is going to throw a big wrench, and you're going to go through some hardships because your whole world will turn upside down. And it's happened to me a few times in my life where I put so much effort into putting together just this shack, essentially, of what my life was. And that quickly got turned upside down, and it changed my life. And I had to really reevaluate. And that's over the last few years, especially after COVID, I had to reevaluate what I actually wanted to do and how I intentionally would put effort. So instead of being one of the pigs that builds your future out of straw and sticks, I very much want to challenge you to focus on what is sturdy. What foundation are you building? And are you steadily laying the bricks? Are you putting layers every single day? And yeah, it may start really slow. And the saying, of course, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it's are you consistently putting layers of that brick down to set that foundation and build that house and build that future? Because I think that is one of the biggest things, is making choices today that impact tomorrow. Not with the sense of tomorrow I'm going to have this incredible future, but just knowing that whether it's tomorrow or years down the road, I'm going to keep building this foundation so that eventually I'll look up and say, oh, the house is done. It just is done. Like, this is awesome. And there will be a day where we'll be able to do that. And that fear is ridiculous. And something that I've learned is that failure is inevitable. It is literally a part of life. But I had to learn that by, you guessed it, failing. And what I have learned is that failure is not a stop sign. Failure is not a stop light. Failure, I feel like, is a green light where it says, okay, you've got to go. Sometimes failure is a U-turn. Sometimes failure is just an exit ramp, and it allows you to go into a different direction where you say, you know what, I don't need to go down this road anymore. This is a failing opportunity that I'm learning that I just don't need to drive this. I mean, if you drove to work every single day, and every single day there is a train that you get at the same time and you sit there, would you try to find a new way to work? Would you try to find a new route? That's the process of failure. And I've loved the question of what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail, right? That's like one of the cliche things I've heard in podcasts. I've heard it in social media posts is, what would you do if you couldn't fail? Would you write a book? Would you start a business? Would you go back to school? Those are all great questions. But I truly believe that in order to step into your future, it has to be bigger than just, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Because that's a great question of what would you do? Absolutely. But the problem is you're going to fail. Period. End of story. Failure is inevitable. It doesn't even matter what you want to do. At some point, you're going to fail at it. I love what one of my favorite teachers says is, he says, he writes books and people will ask him all the time, how do I sell a good book, or how do I write a good book, or how do I do this? And he said he always gets these questions where it's talking about, how do I make a lot of money off of my books that I'm writing versus how do I become a good writer? So there's a disconnect there if you're not asking the right question. And he said the only way to be a good writer is to be a bad writer. And be willing to be a bad writer. If you want to do something well, then you have to do something bad first. At some point in my life, I was as good or better than LeBron James is at basketball. Now, LeBron James may have been 3 years old and I may have been 18, and I was better than him at basketball. LeBron James turned 4, and then he was better than me at basketball at 18. But at some point, I could have stuffed it to him and been like, I'm the king. But I would never do that now because, I mean, he's probably been better than me at basketball since he was like 5. No joke. But the point being is, in order to do something well, you have to be willing to be bad at it. That's part of why I just continually will post this podcast. I have a number in my brain of what I want to do and how I want to do it. And every single week, I'm going to do it. That is my goal. Regardless of failure, I'm just going to do it. And that is where my mentality is at, is I know I'm going to fail. I know I'm going to have bad episodes. I know I'm going to post clips that get no views. I know I'm going to post these things. That's inevitable. I don't even care about that. What really matters is I want to become a person that failure doesn't matter. Failure doesn't affect me. I want to become a person that is just disciplined enough to do it because that is what you do. Has nothing to do with the outcome. And that way, in the process of, I would say, just doing and failing, you're going to find different things that are successful. That's one of the reasons why very wealthy people can make more money, is because they build not just one business, but they'll have 20, 30 businesses and 15 of them will completely bomb. But 5 of them will do all right. And maybe one extra one will do really well and become the size of all 20 of those combined. So you have more opportunities the more you put it out there. So I definitely just want to encourage you, as you step into your future, what are you afraid of? Name it. Name what you're afraid of. Follow it back to its source. Face it as best you absolutely can. And don't be making decisions based on fear. I promise you, it will only make you smaller. It will not make you smarter or better than anybody by saying, I'm going to be wise. We're not going to do that. I don't want to deal with the failure. Well, I can promise you, if you don't want to deal with a failure, you're never going to step into your future, because the future is full of failure. So get used to it and focus on becoming a person where failure doesn't matter. And I think sometimes it boils down to, are you looking at being successful in the job you have or the job you want? Because if you are looking at a job you want and you say, yes, when I get this job, then I'm going to be more attuned, then I'm going to be more focused, then I'm going to wake up earlier, or I'm going to work harder at that job. If you have not built a reputation and built a discipline in who you are in the job you have right now, it doesn't matter what dream job you get, you will lose that dream job because you have not built the fortitude to be able to face when it gets difficult. And I've seen tons of friends over the last few years have multiple jobs, and they've just job hopped. And honestly, in some cases, that job hopping, I'm like, yes, let's go. Try a bunch of things. Find out different skills. Find out if you actually want to do that, or if you want to. And then on the other side, I'm like, okay, make sure that you are not just leaving because you're uncomfortable, because you are going to be uncomfortable in every single job you have, including your dream job. Make sure that you are, if you are exhausted from the work, that you are learning how to develop that irrefutable evidence that I'm going to do a really good job, but I also am not going to sacrifice everything for this moment because it's out of my control. So I'm going to do everything I can and then let it go and come back to it Monday or whatever that may be, whatever your schedule is. Because I've seen a lot of people who will say, I used to love my job and now I hate it. And I ask them, what's different about it? And the majority of the time, it's, I don't connect with it anymore, or I don't enjoy my manager, or it's overbearing and I don't feel like I have any time. At one point, you were doing the same job and it was good, or it was better than what you had before or prior. So it's very interesting. And I truly want to have a full conversation purely about the workforce and the development of skills that allow you to transverse into multiple different jobs. That way, if you are job hopping, instead of job hopping with no purpose, you could do it with purpose of, I want to learn this, this, and this over the next 6 years. So I know I'm going to need to work in this job for at least a year to a year and a half. I know I'm going to need to work in that job for about 2 years to really become an expert in this. But that's going to all accumulate into me being really, really good at this because this is my dream job. That I do actually applaud when people are able to do it with a goal. So we'll have a whole conversation about that at some point. But the question still stands is, what is your reputation? What are you known for? Right? Who do others say that you are because of the irrefutable evidence that you've lived? You've showed up. What do they say? Well, they're consistent. They are so kind. They are really smart. In other cases, I know that there have been moments in my life where I have asked people and they've been very blunt and very honest, and they said, you are selfish. You make selfish choices. And that caused me to really have to reflect on that by asking some of those difficult questions and learn from that. You may be in a situation where it's not necessarily selfish, but maybe it's not really present in the moment, right? Like you're so focused in what you're doing that you go hang out with friends and you don't really hear them or listen to what they're going through. And by the end of it, you're like, okay, yeah, well, I'll see you next week. And you don't realize that you're not really present with them. Physically, maybe yes, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, you may have missed the point of that whole meeting. So it's very important to be able to have those difficult conversations and be honest. But it really, as I was thinking about this thought of going back through the reputation and then the irrefutable evidence of what you've lived, it reminds me of a quote from Alex Hormozy. He's all over social media. Just came out with a new book. He's the guy with he wears the nose strips, the nasal strips all the time, and he always has a hat on. Dude's a legend. But I love this quote. He says, you don't become confident by shouting affirmations in the mirror, but by having a stack of undeniable proof that you are who you say you are. So outwork your self-doubt. And I resonate with that quote so much because I know I can say a lot of good things about me, but the things that I don't have to hear are the things I know I have already lived. I've already done it. I have undeniable proof that I am capable of this. I have undeniable evidence that I can say without a shadow of a doubt, this is who I am. And this is what I've done in the past. And this is my reputation from what they've said about me and also what I've brought to the table consistently. Now, some of that, it's not out of an arrogance. It's out of, I have killed bears and lions and I have protected the sheep. I have done a good job. And if you want to step into your future with confidence, then you have to understand that some of the baggage that you're going to carry with you is actually filled with the tools required to succeed. And you've already learned how to use those tools. So use them. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Again, thank you for 50 episodes. I don't know how we got here. Thank you so much for all of the support throughout the first 50 episodes. There's only more to come, and to the moon, as they say, to the moon we go. If you're watching on YouTube or listening on Spotify, thank you so much. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure that you drop a follow on YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment, shoot me a message on any of my socials. If you want to find me on my socials, I'm on TikTok and X, which is formerly known as Twitter, at Kyle Vaught. That's Kyle V as in Victor ATT. And then on Instagram and Threads, I'm Kyle_Vaught. So make sure that you drop me a follow. I'd love to get in touch with you. For everybody else, thank you again. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.